I've got the Summit out, of course, and one of the next things I want to do on my setup is I want to get the suspension set correctly. And if you notice, I've taken the front wheels off. These big tires are a little bit hard to work with when you want to do suspension setup. And by suspension setup, I mean I want to have the proper camber of the wheels, so in this direction. And let's see if I can show you a little better. So I want the wheels to be set up so that they're nice and true. I want them square to the ground, in other words, perpendicular to the ground. Currently, I don't know if you can tell this, but the rear leans in, and it's also toed in. The steering toes in. So not the best setup. The part of the problem with that is these tires are so big they have a lot of friction, and if they're not tracking true when the vehicle's driving, they're going to drag and scrub on the ground, and that's going to scrub off some energy and just waste batteries. And yeah, I'm going probably a little overboard for an RC truck, but I'm really particular about things like that, and I want to set it up correctly. Most of your racing RC cars are set up in this manner in terms of getting the camber right, the toe in right, etc., etc. So anyway, how are we going to do that? Well, like I said, the tires are a little bit hard to work with. So one of the tricks that some people do is they make setup plates, and that's what I'm going to do. So for this vehicle, I'm just going to use some plywood. So I've cut plywood in a 7" by 7" square. Nothing fancy, just some thin plywood. Let's see what that measures. Let's get our rule out here. This is an old one. Old one, but a good one. It's around 3/8 plywood. So it's not real thick, and but it's fairly strong, and it'll give us a nice flat surface to measure off of. So what am I going to do with the plywood? Well, I'm going to put a hole in there, and then I'm going to put my nut down on it. So the wheel nut will tighten down and clamp the plywood, holding it upright just like a tire or a rim. I have my squares cut. Now I cut these on a table saw. You may not have a table saw, but just try to make a nice cut and keep them the same size as possible. The table saw makes it really quick. You set it to 7" on the rip fence and just go for it. But anyway, so we're gonna put a center hole in this, and then we're just gonna gang drill them all. So we'll just stack them on top of one another and drill them all at once. So how do we find the center? All we're gonna do is we're gonna go from center to center. So I'm gonna come in here. Let's find a good point. Nice sharp point on the board. See if you can see that. This camera works a little tricky sometimes, especially for an amateur like me. Part of the Project King channel is for me to actually learn to make videos and make myself more comfortable making videos. It's kind of a difficult thing for me because I have trouble talking, and so if I can work this out where I'm talking and describing something, it helps me learn how to talk better. Now while I was talking, of course, I made a bit of a mistake there, so I'm going to redraw that one. Got to go from point to point, and we're going to describe a nice line. So there we go. So X marks the spot. That's where we're going to drill. I'm going to take my awl, handy dandy tool, put it in the center, and pop a good hole in there. So now we have a centered hole, and that's going to be the center hole for our drill. Alright, so we have our wheel plates into the vise here. This is going to hold it nice and square for us. I've aligned the edge up so they're nice and flush with one another. I have 4 wheel plates. Now I'm going to drive some screws into this to hold it together while we drill it. So here we go. That's just going to pull it together, keep it from moving around, then we'll pull the screws out later. Now, if you don't have a vise and all this stuff, you could just drill this individually, one at a time. I'm probably going a little overboard on it as usual, but just shows you some different ways of doing things. So we're going to take this over to the drill press and then drill the hole through there nice and square. So I'm going to move it over the drill press. All right, we're ready to drill. So we have our stack of wood. It's going to be our wheel plates. You'll see how it all goes together here in a minute. And then I have a scrap piece that's just going to ride underneath there. And that'll keep the wood from tearing out as the drill bit goes through it. So let's see how that works. We're gonna use a 30-second drill bit for those axles on the summit, and that's quite a large drill bit. This is it here. So we're going to start out with just using a pilot drill, and the pilot drill just helps to guide the larger drill. So let's use a 1/4 inch. So here we go. Got our handy dandy drill press here. This is a fairly old drill press and not real expensive. Makes drilling accurate holes a lot easier. It's not as accurate as like something like a milling machine or something like that, but it's surely more accurate than a handheld drill. If you're just going to drill one of these at a time, I would recommend just drilling one at a time and center marking them like I've done with the X, just with a hand drill. That way you won't have as much error as you go through all of them. So here we go. We're going to drill with the 1/4 inch first. Like a hot knife through butter. There we go. Now we're going to switch over quickly to our 15-30 seconds bit. And we're going to have to lower our table a little. There we go. You can see what I'm doing or not. All right. Now we're going to drill the 15-30 second hole. When you're drilling, you want to let that center itself. See how it wobbles? And you can push down, it'll center. There we go, all done. Now before I unscrew these, I'm going to mark them all so I know their orientation when they were drilled. So I'm going to put a line across, just like that. And that'll tell me the bottom. So they'll sit like this on the truck. So we're going to bring back our impact gun. If you don't have one of these are pretty cool. This is made by Makita, and it's corded. You never need to mess with batteries. And let me tell you, it's strong too. It'll pop them right apart. Very, very strong. You can drive bolts, nuts, whatever you want with it. So there we go. There's our 4 boards, and they look good. So, all right, we're back. So we have our plates made, better known as boards. Now you could make these out of something else besides wood. You could make them out of aluminum, some sort of plastic, but I had wood. So take this wheel off. So here we go. This little wrench is kind of cool. I've not had a truck that uses this big a wheel nut before. I have a Revo and a T-Max and another T-Max and an E-Max, but none of them use that big wheel nut. That's something that came out later. So I like the big wrench. It sure makes it easy on the fingers. And when you have fingers like mine that are all beat up and stuff from various activities, it sure does help. So anyway, let's get that off. There we go, there's the truck without any suspension. So let's go ahead and start bolting our plates on. So these are 3/8 thereabouts, and that's about the maximum thickness you can get on here. I've drilled them to 15-30 seconds, I think it was that I said, and as you can see, it fits nice and snug. Took a little bit of force to get it on there, and then I'm just gonna tighten that down with my wrench, just like I was putting a wheel on. And there we go. Pretty cool, huh? So there's one square wheel. Makes you wonder how it would run with square wheels. All right, let's put the rear one on. Occasionally you'll see the video cut on and off. That's because I've made a mistake or said something wrong or done something wrong. I'm not a professional. I'm a professional at making stuff, but I'm not a professional at making videos. So there we go. And let's flip it around. Now, you know, this is a monster truck, so the precision of the suspension isn't super critical. I mean, let's be real. This is how they set up some race vehicles and so forth. They do use these wheel plates, and you can obtain very, very good accuracy this way. So we're just applying this same principle to a RC vehicle. And I've seen commercial wheel plates and setup tables available for RC vehicles, but like I said, I don't need anything super precise for this monster truck. I just want the wheels to not be fighting each other. In other words, I don't want the tire scrubbing as it's driving along, especially on pavement, because it really creates a lot of friction for the vehicle and makes it hard for it to go forward. So there we go. What do you think? Kind of weird looking, huh? But I think we'll see where I'm going with this. So look at that. Now I have my vehicle with straight edge basically mounted to the hubs. Now what can I do? Well, I'll show you. So I'm going to bring in a speed square. This is what the carpenter uses a lot of times for building houses. Real handy for making quick, accurate cuts. But anyway, it also is obviously a square. So let's look at that. So you can see we have a little bit of gap. So just like I had said, when I received the truck, and it's still this way, the wheel has negative camber, or excuse me, positive camber. The wheel, the tire is leaning, the top is leaning outward. We would prefer it to be perpendicular to the table. Negative camber is actually like this, and a lot of vehicles, especially in the rear of the vehicle, will have this negative camber. You'll notice that on a lot of, even on sport utility vehicles that have rear independent suspension, their bottom of the tires will lean out, and the reason for that is it goes around the turn, the body rolls, and that slight amount of negative camber will then basically go to zero camber, meaning straight up and down, and still have a nice contact surface with the ground. So just, all right, so another use for our wheel plates is we can check toe in. So notice I can take a measurement here, and then I can come over here and take another measurement. And then that'll tell me if the if the wheels are towed in like this or if they're towed out. So I can basically understand the relationship of the wheels to the chassis and get everything lined up properly. So that's it for today. I don't want to make this video too long, so next time, using the wheel plates, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the suspension and get it set up properly. And I know you wanted to see it, so I'm going to have to do it. I got to admit, I wanted to do it too. We're going to kick the truck on and drive. That's what it looks like, folks, with square wheels. See you next time on Project King.